Uh,
No, wait. That depends. If you're asking adult students about learning a second language or a foreign
yeah,
language, that might be a problem. That thought might be a problem. Many people say, "I'm not going to learn English because I'm too old for that." Have you heard that?
yeah.
That might keep the students from learning. So what we need to value in a study is what are the conditions, what is the context, and is the question, or the way they frame the question, is it valid? Is it something that we can say is logically acceptable? So that's why sometimes we need to read the whole article because we don't know.
Yeah,
There are some shitty articles. There are some shitty articles that they have been published, and you read them and you see that they did not really deserve to be published.
I found an article that had
So
a
yes, there are
contradiction.
some articles that they do not deserve that. That's why when I was showing you how to research on the ERIC platform, I had peer review articles because the peer review articles, they have a board of advisors that before they publish the articles in the journals, they revise the articles to see if they comply with reliability, if there is some logical elements, if they are sound research articles that deserve to be published before they publish them. So yes, you're gonna find some articles that do not deserve to be cited. So if you
Okay.
are picky like Randy, do not be that picky, Randy, because you are
Oh,
at the grade level. Do not be that picky, please,
I
because
won't do that again
it's
because
going it's going to affect it's
I
going
spent
to
too much
affect
money.
the development of your work. Then you won't have time to do it. Tell you that for you to complete a sound research study, the minimum time length of time you will take is 3 years. If it is scientific research that you are really caring about all the things, if you are being picky, the minimum 3 years, but you only have like 4 or 6 months because you need to graduate. Uh, it is a more laxed scenario we have here with you guys. I'm showing you this, but then you're gonna have other opportunities to be as picky as you desire to be. But now, please take it easy, but do you are learning. I understand that you're learning. The university understands that you're learning. You're not experts. I am not an expert myself. So, uh, because for me to be an expert, even though I have presented about 5 or 6 research projects, I think I should have devoted myself to really conduct serious research studies at least for 12 years. So I'm not an expert. I won't consider myself an expert. I simply have had many tuitions where they ask me to write reports and many courses on research methodology, and I have compiled all these experiences plus the time I have spent at observing other people's work. And I'm sharing that with you guys. That's it.
You want us to be simple, sir, right?
Yes, be simple, but be certain. Try to do the best. Try to make the best job possible with what you're doing.
Okay.
But do not punish yourself as it doesn't come out well. You try to make it better each time because you have more opportunities. You're not gonna come out with something you write down and it's the perfect thing. Nobody does that. Okay, more questions,
So
Randy. If you
you already answered one question. One more question. Here I have what happens when we don't have the name of the journal or website to cite. I mean, here I have an example. It says the name should be, for example, Boletín Redipe, for example. What happens when we don't have any of that? I just in one research saw the name of the university, but
imagine that I'm not here and somebody here asks, "How can we cite this?" Where would you go to find this information?
just the link and the author, and the title of the research. That's what I.
Google Scholar. You go to Google Scholar. But imagine Google Scholar doesn't exist. Where would you go to find this answer?
To a library,
You go to the APA manual.
APA.
The APA manual tells
Okay.
you how to cite different types of sources. You can cite even a conversation you had with an expert.
I
If you
thought
had a
it was
conversation with a colleague that you think that is necessary to cite because the guy is an expert, Abel, Abel, and the experience the person
No,
has.
I'm just learning. Come on.
No. I'm telling you because that answers the question you asked me.
Yeah,
And
it
what happens
does.
is that, listen, whenever you ask me a question, you might think it is a simple question. But the complexities in research are so many complexities that when you ask me that question, it takes half an hour to answer it.
The reason I asked it is I like what empirical people. I mean, there are many people who know a lot, and they haven't like had much studies, but they provide relevant sources of information to society and help society itself. There are good examples of that.
That's
People I
true.
know.
That's true. People that are knowledgeable.
Musicians, for example, you know, I'm into music sometimes, and some of them haven't assisted, attendant to a musical school, and they teach other musicians who have. It works differently, though.
Okay. Questions?
There is
Now you have
somebody
questions?
recording the class. Is
Yes,
there
yes.
somebody?
They're recording this class. This class is really, really good because you're asking many questions that they are important.
The
And
last one.
plus,
Can you repeat
the last-
what you said before about the school of thoughts regarding to if it is communication skills? Then if
okay. In language teaching, and that happens in language acquisition theories, you have a communicative approach, you have communicative competence, and you have functional communicative approaches. All these come from the constructivist perspective, where they believe that language is to be used for interaction. Is that what you mean, Randy? If you want to cite a book that talks about that, go to the book you use in composition. You can cite him, but please try to find other authors that talk about the same topic. Go Google Scholar and try to find books.
acquisition.
Language acquisition theories.
Okay.
Yes. But you have other perspectives. If you think that the repeat after me method is valid, or you want to see how it works, and then you need to cite authors, you need to see where this school of thought is coming. It is the behaviorist or conductive perspective that draws from this philosophical perspective we call positivism. Same as the structuralist Ferdinand de Saussure school, that they think that the language must be studied after the observable phenomenon of expression, even it is written or spoken. And the thing is that you are looking at the physical threads, the surface structure of the language, the composition of the sentences, the flexion of the words, and pronunciation, correctness, and everything. But in communicative, constructivist perspectives, you care more for the social and personal meaning, the feelings, in a humanistic approach, and it is different. When you are studying any topic, it is really, really good to say from which perspective you are observing the thing. Abel, for example, because of the question he have asked, is holding a qualitative perspective, is more constructivist. And that is good in education because this is the way that we are on now. Like constructivism and communicative language teaching is what is being promoted because of the Common European Framework, and the policy has adopted more active participation of students in the classroom instead of having a professor as the center of knowledge dictating what the norm is, or having a book that you simply follow page after page and repeating and memorizing. You know, so we are out of the traditional. There are still other perspectives that value, this is the cognitivist perspective, that they value the mental processes through which people learn, and constructivist perspectives are different because they, especially in social constructivist perspectives, they value more interaction, people's interaction, and the purposes you have as you use language from a functional perspective. You're using the language because you want to attain you want to attain a result. You have a purpose, an idea in mind. Either it be to ask for help, tell an opinion, introduce yourself, ask for permission, etc. So this is the root in the communicative approach that we use in the Dominican curriculum for foreign languages also. That you need to know, right? Even though we have a competence-based curriculum in general, and the competence-based curriculum in this concept of competence, they're not using the concept of competence we use in the theories in language learning and teaching. This thing about competence in the curriculum has to do with a labor market that tells you that whatever you say you do, you need to be able to do it. So this is a conductist way of seeing the process of learning. But the curriculum favors pedagogical, constructivist strategies so that teachers, students interact as a way to learn. But at the end, the product of those learning processes needs to be measured by observable results. When you are evaluating your students, you need to be able to say what percentage of them and what percentage of the knowledge you have treated in the classroom has been attained. So you need a little bit of conductism sometimes. All right, so any other question concerning the literature review? Some might not have understood. January.
Okay, Professor. Okay, Professor. So, my question is, do you need to be specific on, for example, on the all element that you have to cover, we have to cover in the table, or just to be into the more important one?
The ones that are more related to your study, to your interests. Because you might have a study that only one of the contents relates to what you are interested to research about. So if you read an article and you find nothing of interest, since you read the, excuse me, if you start reading the article and you see there's something that you cannot add to the one you're studying, then you don't use it. You try to find other studies, okay? And if you see that the studies that are related to your problem, they have results, and the results are not of interest or related to, some of the results are not related to your study, why are you going to be adding more things? So thank you for this question. This is important.
Okay.
The results, but the results that are in agreement to what you're trying to study. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, teacher.
Okay. So I think we're done for the literature review. We can go now see what the introduction implies. For you, what is an introduction? What is an introduction for you, people? Cesar Garcia.
Yeah, introduction is part of the study that you can actually introduce. Is it gives some information about the topic is. It's not giving more details, but it's the mentioning the who and the question that you had in the topic. So it is something like a short resume, but not exactly. It's just part of the project or the theme that you are present in the argument.
Present. Okay, thank you, Cesar. Thank you. Is any?
Okay, so for me, introduction is when you introduce your topic, your thesis, and just in a brief explanation. It's going to tell you what happened in the problem or in the statement that you are doing.
Okay, very good. Rudy Abel. Rudy Abel.
Well, well, well. Regarding the research strategies, the introduction is where you address the main topic of the article in the beginning, and actually it provides a peek into the paper and describe the process and tells the readers what it's going to be about.
Good. Let's have Jana. Hanel. Ruth Estel. Ruth Estel. Okay, it seems like Ruth cannot say anything. Manuel, you want to say something, Manny? Teacher Manny?
Yes, Professor. I was going to say that the introduction, it's where you place the topic you choose to investigate, why you choose it, and the importance of that topic. So you make the readers clear about your understanding of the topic, make them understand clearly what is it that they will be reading about.
Yes, good.
Very good. You nail it. Okay, Ruth Estel. You're raising you. I don't think maybe.
Yes. I think she's getting hear us.
Ruth Solis. It's not your partner, Abel. She's yes. In the introduction, you state what the problem is, what the questions are, what the purpose of your research study is. So that doesn't make it a normal introduction. When you're writing an introduction for a research study, you need to describe your interest, even though you don't use the first person to say I or me or we or us. But you say how the pronoun, you need to make a description of what is happening in the context that you're going to study. What are the institutions? If you're studying the MINERD, what is the institution concerning to that problem? What is the institution doing? What are the problems? Describe what they should be doing. If you're studying the Ministry of Education, the MINERD, then you need to go over the curriculum and see what is the purpose of the Dominican curriculum, how describe how many hours a week students study, what are the conditions, what are the goals and everything, what are the reports, what are the new programs that they are using. If all of that is related, you need to know about what is happening. But how your specific problem of interest is important for the students. What is it that you are observing that is in official documents or even in the newspapers? In the newspapers, you find news that tells you about how some authors think people are learning English here in the Dominican Republic, about the immersion program, about the English in language at school, and so on. You can cite these resources just to show the reader how things are going. This is the background. After the background, you need to write another section in the introduction that we call the problem statement. After you have described what the problem is in your community, or not necessarily your community, the context that you're studying, you need to explore the previous literature that have studied that problem. This is called the antecedents. From the literature review, the studies that are related to the problem of your interest, you mention them from 6 to 10 articles that they are related to the problem you are studying. And you try to see what deficiency they have. You try to see what questions they did not answer, what methodologies they did not use, what regions in the world they have studied, what dates, because after that, you're going to say, because of the review literature studied this in that manner, as answering these questions, and they did not study in this other manner or asking this other question, or they did not explore after the pandemic, or more information is needed because there are contradictory results. I propose to study this, and that to answer this, and that questions. This is your specific problem. And we call this section problem statement section. That's something you can write in 1 page or 2. The background, 2 to 3 pages or something. It varies. I gave you some suggestions of pages in one slide I shared, but I'm going to share it with you in a moment. After you do that, you need to make sure that you are going to write a purpose. What is the purpose why you want to study this problem? The purpose is related to the research questions. Remember, you're not going to serve the world. You're seeking to understand the problem better. So when you're writing the purpose, the research purpose, in one paragraph, the research purpose, you say what the general problem is. And the purpose needs to be answering those questions. So the purpose of this research study is to explore, identify, know this, and that. What are the effects of this upon this? It depends on the question, your problem. It's the same thing. In this study, we will explore, and you go to specific things you're going to explore. If it is in speaking, how students' fluency is affected, how student participation in oral activities is affected by the level of motivation, anxiety levels, etc., etc. So you need to specify what things you are going to investigate in the purpose. Some students say, the purpose of this study is to solve the problem of, no, this is not. The purpose of the study is to understand, to find evidence, and that's it. Okay. After the purpose comes research questions. If you want, you write research objectives, but objectives is the purpose. What happens with the objectives is that it is a more conductist perspective, positivist perspective that I told you. It is the dominant tradition in research worldwide. That's why they ask you to write objectives, they ask you to write hypotheses. But in qualitative research, you state a purpose and you state research questions, and that's enough. But for you to have any problem with other professors that might have a different perspective than mine, please consider to include objectives, one general objectives, and at least 3 specific questions, all of them related to the same thing. So if you have one general question, think of this general question as the topic, and the subtopics to detail that topic are the specific questions. Qualitative, open questions and subjectivities they have developed with their life experiences and their interaction with the context and the culture. In quantitative research studies, closed questions are asked to use measurable construct, measurable variables, measurable phenomenon, a measurable phenomenon. And I'm not sharing the screen yet. I'm just giving you this talk, and then I'm gonna share the image. I have already shared that, but I'm gonna share it again. And then after you have presented the questions, then you have the last part of the introduction, which is the justification. Justify your research study. To justify your research study, then you need to think about how answering these questions is good information. The information you receive after answering these questions is good for which people? Is it for teachers who can teach in a more informed way? Is it for schools, principals, or authorities? Is it for the curriculum designers? Is it for other researchers and investigators? This is the justification, where you justify. You justify why answering these questions under this research purpose makes sense to the community of practice. People like to say community of practice. So this community of practice is going to make use of that information. In one paragraph, you can justify that. Okay? Some people do not include the following section, but this is something really important. In the introduction, before you go to the literature review section, you can write definition of terms section. Some advisors ask you to write conceptual framework. A conceptual framework is when you use the topics you cover in the literature review as they are related to the problem you're studying. You put it like in the center, for example, and you show the relationship with a map. You use a mind map to show, as if it is in a slide, to show the relationship between the explored literature, the antecedents, and the question purposes you have. So you want to picture how all those elements of the review of the literature you have got, plus the problems, the questions and the objectives, how they are related to each other. And from there, you take definition of terms and all then means. You give a definition, and this is the conceptual framework. Ojalá les haya gustado esta charla. La puedo repetir muchas veces mirando algo que le voy a mostrar ahora. Déjame buscarlo. ¿Dónde está?
It'd be great.
For this, I hope you have already seen it. You remember this?
Yes.
I think I showed that at the first class, right?
Can you please, Professor?
All right. On this side, on the left side, you have the steps you need.
We have it. But
I'm going to zoom in.
but we need more details. Keep on.
You have it, but always, because it's complex. What you're doing is the most complex. Remember, in my composition classes, those who do composition classes with me, I was telling you how to write a paragraph, but I also told you, hey, you're gonna have more complex text to write. You have a paragraph, you have a short essay, which is only 5 paragraphs long. But what when you need to write a book, or you need to write a monograph? You need to make sense of the information you're writing, and all the steps I'm telling you to use. You see, you don't need it in a paragraph, maybe, but you're going to need it when you are working with complex texts. Okay. In the introduction, this has to do. You need to write a background section. This is after exploring the literature that you are doing, that you already know how to do after this discussion. And you're learning, you're in the process of learning at the time you're reflecting about it. You write a background section where you reflect on the context of the problem and write a background on the light of the findings of your review of the literature and your knowledge of the local context. When I say review of the literature is because the institutional reports are also part of your literature review. Remember this? So the institutional reports of the Minerd and everything can be also included in the literature review, okay? Not only in the background. Because they describe the local context of your problem and you make sense of how all of the other literature you have revised is in agreement to this.
You mean if they change a methodology or something to schools?
Yes, Randy. What is the methodology the school is promoting between teachers
Okay.
or among teachers, telling them what to do to teach? Now that you mentioned it, a couple of weeks ago, the ministry, or some authorities in the Ministry of Education were promoting to teach project-based approach to language teaching and to teaching all of the other subjects. And many teachers and teachers association or teachers union leaders, they started to protest against that perspective, because that was limiting the way they see projects where you have different teachers for specific subjects. Then one of the answers they got from the department where I work is that the curriculum gives different strategies for us to undertake the teaching and learning process, and all of them are valid, not only project-based teaching. Okay, after you write the background section, remember you need to write the problem statement as I explained, and you have more details than the ones I can offer here. Before that, you read this. This is what I have just explained. You read this, and then you go back to the previous part where I was explaining. Since we are recording this presentation, I think it's going to help you, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, in the introduction, there's a more detailed section of themes that you need to cover in your report, and that's what you need to write. And this is your assignment for next week. And this is what we're going to be doing in the first hour. We're going to be exploring any advances you have made in the literature review, but really, really brief, because the most important is the introduction section. Here you can find that I place the word problem statement, and I make the background as part of the problem statement. However, if that makes you more sense, you can write them in separate section. As you can see on the left, you can write a background section. The background es la descripción del contexto. You can write a different section explaining how the problems is visible in your community. Pero ya ustedes tienen el caco lleno de información con artículos de investigación que han leído sobre el problema y van a poder juzgar mejor cómo está el contexto, okay? So now, other studies, they are the antecedents. In these other studies, in the problem statement section, these other studies, just imagine this is here. In the problem statement, you take 6 to 10 studies related to the problem, the studies that you identified in the literature review that are closely related to your problem. You use these 6 to 10 studies to show what is the state of the art of the problem and how they have tackled the problem, how they have studied it, using different questions, different methodologies, different type of participants at different contexts, at different times, at different ages. Okay, and then you derive from this, you write something specific researchable problem. Here, there's something you can add is, what is the deficiency? What is it they have not studied? What contexts, questions, dates, they have not explored? You can write a subheading here that is called deficiency state. But if you want to do it, sure, you're not using it, okay? After that, and because of unit, you say ok, yo no tengo miedo escribiendo así directo delante de ustedes. There's no fear. Antes del error aquí. Okay, bien. Whatever. Then, after you say these questions were not answered in the literature I explored, no se lancen a decir, yo no encontré ningún estudio. No, no, no. Información hay de más de todo. Díganlo de una forma más bonita. Digan, in the literature we reviewed, on the review literature, there's no found evidence that they have studied this question, or because we need to replicate studies, or we need to continue asking the same question and exploring the same question again and again in different contexts because we have different answers. Or they have not answered this question. They have not asked this question. I want to ask this question that is new. But don't say there's not evidence. There's not an article about this. No, say in the literature review, in the review of the literature, we did not find any studies about this, and that. We're not supposed to use the word we, even though it is acceptable in qualitative studies. But as I told you, the tradition is being more objective, and for you to be more objective, stop using I, we,
Personal.
and try to use the third person always, just to be like objective, even though you're writing qualitative research studies. Okay. Then you propose a specific researchable problem. To ask these questions, we propose a research study on this, and that. Ese es tu problema específico que tú lo relacionaste con la revisión de literatura que hiciste. Pero cuando tú tengas tus resultados, esos resultados, tú los vas a comparar con los resultados que tú citaste aquí en el antecedente, en la introducción. O ustedes ya han terminado su investigación en las escuelas. Hay una sección que se llama, después de los resultados, Discussion of the Results. You are going to compare, contrast your process, your results to the previous ones in the literature. Está la magia y está el trabajo académico que ayuda a participar en la conversación de investigación y a ir avanzando en los conocimientos, right? Yeah, go ahead. That's a great question. It depends on the professor you have also. But what they recommend is for you to begin with an introduction. But in the introduction, the elements, not necessarily I like that, the way I'm showing you. They might be in different places. But for me, and that's something, that's the way I have learned and I've seen in books, this is more logical organization of them, even though I tell you that I have my doubts on separating the background section from the problem statement. For me, it is acceptable, and that's something I like to do, is to frame the problem, including the background, including the description of the problem, of the context. So you can find some studies where the background is part of a problem statement here, or it is in a separate section. In other studies, you find people talking about the deficiency statement in other place, but this is not good. Some people are lost, obviously, because they are not. Because one thing is coming after the other. If you notice it, you part from the exploration of previous studies, you stay efficiency, is what the research questions that go with the purpose are, and the justification is how following this purpose and answering this research question is going to be good for people, which people. So everything here is organized, but yes, I have seen many research studies that they are not well organized.
Yeah, that's the first module. We did a practice. Professor Rice.
No, they're not. They're not. Okay. They're not the same. In the immersion program, for example, for you to describe the background, you need to say what the English immersion program is, what is the initiative, what was the purpose of that program, what has been the different how can I say, if the program has been successful, but you need to search for some in the review of the literature. You might have found institutional reports from the MESID. You might have found other even local studies that gives you some hints, but you're not expected here to make a review of the literature. They don't expect that here. They expect you to describe the context, how things are happening and what problems are present and visible, and how the authorities have tried to solve the problem as they show in institutional reports. Different. You are describing the context, what is happening in the local school. In the antecedents, in the problem statement, I underline it here. In the antecedents in the problem statement, you go to the review of the literature and you tell us what previous research studies, not institutional reports. No. Research studies have found about your topic What questions, what methodologies they have used, because you're trying to find how you're going to enter the company. Wait a minute. In the latest view,